Alright, let's make an Android app. We'll be drawing some simple shapes, colors, images, doing animations, reacting to touches on the screen. You'll need to have the Android SDK installed, so if you don't have that already, you should follow my other video in the description and then come back. So before we get started, I'm going to start an emulator. You can skip this if you have an Android phone that's plugged into your computer. So I'm going to go to the SDK folder that I downloaded when I installed everything and go into SDK, Tools, and then run the Android program. So there's a bug in this program. To get the menu to appear, you have to switch to another app and then switch back. And then you can go to Tools, Manage AVDs, and then choose the emulator that you should have created from the install video, and then click Start. So that'll take a minute or two to boot up. Then we're going to start up IntelliJ. And now we can create our app. So I'll make a new project, and we'll select Android, Gradle Android module. Then we can give it a name. I'm also going to give mine a package name. Android uses this to tell different apps apart in case they have the same names. If you have your own website, you could put the name of your website here, only backwards, like the com part goes first. If you don't, you can just leave it as the default. Then we need to choose empty activity so we don't get a bunch of stuff that we don't need. And then the rest of this stuff can just be left as the default. So this may take a minute or two to create. So what are we looking at here? Well, on the left we can see a whole bunch of files got created for us. There's only one that's important to us right now. It's in our demo game folder under app, then src, which we usually say source, then main, Java, and then there's our package name, and then main activity.java. And I'm going to close this other tab that we don't need. So this is the main code file in our app. There's a lot of stuff you can just tune out for now, but there's a few important things to see. First of all, we have an onCreate method. The code in between the curly braces here is what will run when our app starts up. You can also see we're calling a method called setContentView. That tells Android what to show on the screen. So let's get started. We want to create something new to show on the screen, so I'm going to replace what's in setContentView with new demo game view, and then parentheses. Demo game view is a new thing we're creating. We can really call it anything we want. And now the code turned red, which means IntelliJ wants us to fix something. I'm going to put my cursor there and type Alt-Enter and choose Create Class. And this is going to make a new file for us called demogameview.java. And here there's a red squiggly showing another problem, so I'm going to click there and hit Alt-Enter again. And I'm going to create constructor matching super. That's something you'll learn about later, but it's just something we have to do when making a new view class. And we need to choose the top one here and hit OK. So to draw in Android, we need two things, a position and a color. We're going to make what's called variables for these, which is just a way for the computer to store information. So here's how we make the position variable. We say rectf, that's a kind of rectangle. Then we give it a name. I'll use square position since I want to draw a square. Then equals new rectf, and then parentheses. And in the parentheses, 4 numbers. That's for the left, top, right, and bottom positions of the rectangle. And then a semicolon at the end. Oh, and you see rectf turned red. we've got to click there and hit Alt-Enter. Whew, so that was a lot, but you're always going to use that same pattern for making positions, just with a different name and different numbers. So you'll get familiar with that. So now, here's the pattern for making a color variable. I'm going to say paint, and then the name, I'll use square color, and then equals new paint, parentheses, and then a semicolon at the end. And we've got to use Alt-Enter to import this again. But there's a second part for making a color. We need to go inside of this demo game view method after the super context. And we're going to add square color dot set color, and in parentheses color dot red, and then a semicolon at the end. So this is how we tell what color to use. And now that we have our position and color variables, we can draw them. We're going to go down to the end after the demo game view method, but still inside the class. And I'm going to start typing on draw. And when this menu pops up, I'm going to choose it and hit enter. And it's going to fill in the code template for us. So I'm going to delete what's there and write our new code, which is canvas.drawRect, and then in parentheses, square position, comma, square color, the names of our two variables, and then a semicolon at the end. So let's try this out. I'm going to hit this play button up in the toolbar to run the app. And it looks like we got an error. So I'm going to double click this first error and see if it goes anywhere. Nope. Let me try the second one. So that's taking us here in main activity.java. Right, so I forgot one part of how to make a new view. We have to put the word this in the parentheses. And it's kind of hard to explain what that's for, but just for now, you're just going to need that whenever you make a new view. Okay, so let's try running this again. So it's asking me where to run the app. If you have a phone plugged in, you should see it here. I have my emulator running, so I'm going to choose that, and I'll check this box so it doesn't keep asking me every time. And I'll switch over to the emulator and wait for it to start. And there it is. So let's add an oval, and then we'll make it move around. So first we need to make position and color variables for the oval. I want to make mine a nice shade of blue. So I could use color.blue here, but that's not going to be exactly the color I want. So let me show how to choose any color. I'm going to use color.rgb, and for this you have to give it 3 numbers. So if you don't know what RGB values are, or even if you do, you can do a search for color picker and you'll find a tool that will let you pick a color, and then you can see the RG and B values for that color. So here I've got 81, 140, 240. 81, 140, 240. Okay, and now we can draw it. I'm going to use draw oval instead of draw rect, but otherwise it's exactly the same. And while we're at it, I'm going to change the rectangle to fill the whole screen. So it'll be a blue circle on a red background. So when we run it, great, that is exactly what I was hoping for. So let's add animation. The way this works is we'll have some code that'll run over and over again, and what it'll do is modify the values in our position variables, or it could modify the color variables too, and then tell Android to redraw the screen. So to do this, I'm going to go to the demo game view method. That's the special setup method. And I'm going to say new timer parentheses, dot schedule at fixed rate, and then in parentheses, new timer task. And it's important to hit enter on this menu so it'll fill in the template code. But before we put any code in here, we need to go down between the curly brace and the closing parenthesis and put 30, 30. So the first number here is how long it's going to wait before starting to run the timer code the first time. And the second number is how long it's going to wait each time after that before running it again. So that number is milliseconds. So our timer code is going to run every 30 milliseconds, which is about 33 times per second, which is a pretty good speed to get smooth animations. So now we can fill in the code. I want to move my oval to the right, so I'm going to add to the left and right values of the oval position variable. So I'll say oval position.left equals oval position.left plus 1, and oval position.right equals oval position.right plus 1, and don't forget your semicolons. And then after we change our variables, we say post invalidate parentheses, which is what tells Android to redraw the screen. So let's try that out. And there it is, moving across the screen. Now let's make something happen when we touch the screen. So to do this, we're going to have a new special method. So I'm going to go here to the bottom, after onDraw, but still inside the class, and start typing onTouchEvent, and then choose it from this menu. So for the code here, let's change the background color to black. So I'm going to say squareColor.setColor, and then give it a new color. So I'm going to choose a really dark gray. I happen to know the numbers for that. And then we have to say post invalidate again at the end to tell Android to redraw the screen, just like in our timer code. And there's one more thing that's special about onTouchEvent. At the end we have to say return true to tell it that we did something with the touch event. The way we know we have to have a return is because of this word boolean right before onTouchEvent. So in the onDraw method it has the word void there, which means we don't need a return statement, but in onTouch it says boolean, so that means we have to put return true or false at the end. We want to say true here. So let's run this and see what happens. And when we click, the background turns black. So we can draw things and move them around, but let's add some more complicated behavior. So we're going to use what's called an if statement. So let's go to the timer code and make the oval change color when it moves past a certain position. So I'm going to say if, and then in parentheses, oval position.left is greater than 200, and then curly braces. So inside the curly braces, we'll put some code that's only going to run when the oval is farther than 200. So I'll say oval paint.setColor, and let's choose a darker blue here. 23, 68, 145. 23, 68, 145. Okay. Let me show one more thing before we run it. Let's go to onTouchEvent, and we'll change it to only make the background black if we touch inside of the oval. And if we touch anywhere else, it'll just not do anything. So we can use a special condition here. So we'll still use an if statement. We'll say if, and then in the parentheses, oval position.contains, and we can also refer to the position of the touch from the touch event with event.getX, comma, event.getY, So X and Y mean the horizontal and vertical positions of where we touched. And then let's move the set color inside of there. So if the X and Y position of where we touched is inside of the oval's position, then we'll change the square color to black, and otherwise we'll do nothing, just leave it how it is. So let's try it out. So when the circle gets to 200, it changes color. And if we click around, nothing happens unless we click in the circle, and then the background changes. Perfect. So you may want to stop here and see what you can make with shapes and colors and animations and touch events. That was a lot of stuff. But if you want to learn a little bit more, I'll show one more thing, how to draw images. So let's find an image first. I like to use a site called openclipart.org, since everything there is legal to use in your app. So let's search for maybe unicorn. There we go. Let's grab that pegacorn. So I'm going to drag that to my desktop. So here's where it needs to go. Under Demo Game, in App, Source, Main, Res, and then Drawable, this is where we need to put our images. So I'm going to drag it in there, and then hit OK to move it. So to draw an image, we need a different kind of variable called a bitmap. So we'll make it like this. Bitmap, and then the name of the variable, and then a semicolon. And Alt-Enter to import bitmap if it turns red. And then part 2 for bitmaps is in the special setup method. We'll say pegacorn image equals bitmapfactory.decodeResource, and then in parentheses, context.getResources, parentheses, comma, R, capital R, dot drawable, dot, and then the name of the image file. But you have to make sure to capitalize it the same way as the actual file. And this line is getting long, so I'm going to split it in the middle so we can see it all. And then to draw it, canvas.drawBitmap, then the variable name, then the left and top position. So I'll put mine in the top left corner at 0, 0. And then the word null, since we don't need a color, it should use the colors from the image. So let's try that out. So if we read this message, it's saying that our image is only allowed to have lowercase letters and numbers in it. So I'm going to right click on the image and go to Refactor, Rename, and give it a name that Android will like a little better. And we can see that IntelliJ updates the name up here for us as well. It's cool like that. Okay, now let's try it. And there it is, striking a majestic pose. Let me show how to animate an image, since it's a little different from moving shapes. We'll need to create a variable for the position and use that instead of these numbers. So when we make it, it's not a rect F, like for the shapes, it's a float in lowercase. So mine's called pegacorn top, and it'll start at 0. And then I'll update it in the timer code. And I'll also add an if statement here to move it back to the top if it gets too far down. And we'll try it out. So those are the basics of making a simple game, or maybe some interactive art as an Android app. If you haven't already been following along yourself, why don't you go try it out and see what you can make? I'd love to see anything you all come up with, or if you have any questions or problems making your own apps, you can find me on Twitter or at buildsomethingawesome.org. And thanks for watching. Have fun.